Bismillah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will reading the article, very interesting article from Bronstein.com about Java La Grande map. The map, Java La Grande, an imagined continent that invited close inspection from viewers, gives new meaning to the assertion that the map is the territory, for although this territory never existed, it was mapped. The medieval construction of the antipodes, a mode to balance to the continents, was an artifact of early modern European cartography of considerable duration and lasting power. When Matteo Ricci mapped the world region in 1607 for his Chinese house, his copy of the Ortelian map included a large discussion of Guinea as a place not studied or known well by Europeans or anyone, and perhaps an independent island or attached to the southern pole, albeit one that was not known to be inhabited, and with which little if any contact had been made. In this sense, Guinea remained an outlier in the age of discoveries, and a somewhat rare blank spot on Ricci's global map. As an artifact with an esteemed cartographical lineage, the image of a continental landmass include to be mapped into existence by the mid-19th century, but its appearance in the below chromolithograph of a Renaissance map from the library of Baronet Sir Thomas Philip was declared the first map ever recorded of nothing less than the very continent of Australia, as ostensibly witnessed by the Portuguese sailors in the pristine state of nature in which they had allegedly first discovered it. The map was prized as an image of initial discovery. The anonymous artist cartographer recorded the recession of space in this map, which as it received its inhabitants are registered in Brownish tracery, foregrounded the idyllic life of this entirely unknown land. You get the idea of arriving in a region taken as Australia that was the entrance to a landscape of untold wonders in the map of Java La Grande, designed for Nicholas Fullard, Nautical Atlas of 1547 in Dieppe, a center of the diffusion of Portuguese nautical charts for an elite audience of European nobility, reproduced in this 1856 facsimile now stored among the jewels of the Australian National Library. Well, the pictorial landscape chart was a luxury embellishment of the sorts of routers that were drawn with artists of local topography. The material object was prized and promoted by Phillips as a record of the first encounter with the territory of Australia, reproduced with such painstaking care in the mid-19th century as a chromolithograph from the first Baronet's library when he tried to disperse the Fullard Atlas and other early modern books to the British Library, inspiring the reproduction of the map, which he mistitled the first map of Australia. To promote the value of his collection, the map made for the Fullard Atlas by an unknown painter was probably valued because it seems to record an image of Portuguese encounter with the indigenous inhabitants of Australia as part of the corpus of Dieppe charts that were unlike earliest nautical maps. Pictorial synthesis Portuguese discoveries of almost ethnographic qualitative richness as depictions of inhabitants for elite audience. The image has provided a touchstone of a vanished native culture that it is particularly powerful as an imagined precursor of the discovery of Australia, values as an image of imagined contact. The Fallard map possesses the distinctively attractive qualitative largeness peculiar even to the Dieppe school of which it formed parts. The identification of Australia with the mythical Java La Grande is not entirely rooted in geographic fancy. Java La Grande was described by Marco Polo as the largest island in the world, but reflected some recognition of this unknown landmass that extended to Antarctica and recurs in the Dieppe maps as a cosmographical identification as not an island, but terra firma. At the same time as the current Java was described by geographers of the 1560s, the Dieppe school identified La Grande Java as an extension of the Antarctica Terra Australis, and it was taken as early evidence of the southern continent's early discovery. It's so wonderful. The map became taken as the territory, and so why not preserve this map as a treasure of the collection of the Australian National Library, even if it is a 19th century copy and quite a faithful one of a map that represented quite a different imagined line? I don't know too. Early identified as the first map made of the continent, this map provides a list of coastal posts that an artist proceeds to fill in with imagined views of inhabitants advancing as if to greet newly arriving visitors with arms literally open in welcoming sign, if not in a ritual procession. The intensity of play of imagination is evident in contrast to a later 1777 nautical map showing two ships circumnavigation of the world under the command of Anthony de Bougainville. Anthony de Bougainville, whose cartographer constrained himself to parts of the eastern coast observed with sufficient detail to establish for readers, allowing far more local detail to the as yet unsettled continent, and confined himself to the better known shorelines of its coast. Yet what was later prized as the first map of Australia is distinct from a roughly contemporary 1543 charts by Guillaume Broscon of the same school in Dieppe, who synthesized information from prized Portuguese charts to a new audience of landlocked European nobles. This early map devoted a considerable space to Java La Grande, extending the rectangular format of the engraved global projection later standardized after their printing by Mercator and Ortelius, if already adopted by humanist geographers, and offering far more detailed depiction of the settle's interior than nautical charts that confine themselves to coastal towns. The almost ornamental multiplication of compass roses that proliferate like heraldic crests on this map suggests its ornamental nature in a corpus of maps. A fair amount of extension of the topos of cartographical invention of the mediation of new discovery that animated these excited atlases of the late 1540s in Dieppe are reflected. The map of Java La Grande among the 56 maps that the nautical sailor and self-styled cosmographer Guillermo Le Teslu included in his Cosmographie Universelle, selon les navigateurs tant anciens que moderns. The work comprehensive claims derived from its Its use of a range of Spanish and Portuguese charts together with maps of his own design that synthesize recent maps of Americas. He readily represented these maps as rife with cartographical invention as well as following cartographical conventions, as if suggesting the frequent embellishment of persuasive or recognizable detail in maps, more than the lesson his own achievement in mapping such much of the Americans might have merited. What I have marked and depicted is only by imagination, and I have not noted or remarked on any of commodities or incommodities of the place, nor a mountains, river, or other things, for the last has never yet been any man who has made a certain discovery of it. The absence of certain discovery is an apt juxtaposition with his own discovery, and the admission of the absence of such certain discovery led to a land was entitled to be created by the imagination. The imagined land expanse was documented as well as in nautical maps limited to shoreline, offering far less qualitative local details than the expanse of its coast, but suggesting in an enticing fashion its expanse, and multiplying elegant compass roses as if for an excuse to include more cool leaf as a sophisticated ornamental boundary of decorative motif. This abundant cartographical imaginary suggested the fascination of imagination, how space extended far beyond a situated eye, and a sort of key to processing the extent of the dramatically expanded spatial expanse of the inhabited world. But for Proscon, as for Letestu, Java was both a continent of sorts that extended to the pole, and needed to be accommodated by an extra flap of paper to be contained, but an uninhabited or at least unknown place in the Terra Australia jutting up to Indonesia to reflect geographical tradition and perhaps to balance the land masses distributed elsewhere on the chart. The addition of far greater detail and qualitative content in the Fallard map developed the notion of the materiality of the map in the Dieppe school. If we are struck more by its interior, the coastline of Java in the Fallard map suggests to a detailed attentiveness to local topography derived from Portuguese sources of more specific scope. Despite the lush detail of its interior and a playful exterior of ink of different colors to add variety to its form, the considerable local detail depicting something like the discovery of a pre-Adamic life is something of a counterpart to the expansion of inhabited expanses in early world maps. The clothes of its inhabitants cast in somewhat neo-orientalist garb as following their red turbaned leader to greet arriving men, appeared with curious dwellings, customs, and styles of work, as well as a unique local bestiary and vegetation, as well as different custom of social life. Two figures on the left of this can almost seem foreign observers, describing what they see. It shown without regard for the scale of islands of inlet on the coast, pirate with arresting postcards. This image of eastern coast of Australia is only slightly embellished from Fallard map. It been recently suggested that the inventive maps of the Dieppe school fabrication the entire continent out of geographic legends to evoke a potential land for colonization by the French monarch, as in this earlier 1566. Desline's world map. Indeed, this deluxe manuscript reflected the broader interest of the materializing of wealth of the map, and of the surveys seem to cast Java La Grande as something of the potential equivalent of what the Spanish art found in the Americas. The notion of this fabrication of continents seems absurd, but had confirmation in geographic theory. Java La Grande is projected as a land of potential conquest and wealth, and is a survival of medieval written geographies that was transposed to a recognizable modern cartographical form. If it attended the imagination expansive island of Toprabana, identified with Madagascar but often shown as a land of wealth, and in ways move this target to European interest further east toward the Spice Island and Indonesia. The exquisitely tangible nature of the contents of the Ballard's map may give some confirmation to its invention. The upper register of the first image of the original Ballard Atlas, now in the Huntington Library, show the region Aboriginal inhabitant in a monochrome hooks of striking similarity to a cave painting as broad hunters bearing spears. The image now held in Canberra is a striking copy of this image of the inhabitants of Java La Grande, which feature its inhabitants in a procession across the newly mapped land. The placement of initial folio, perhaps as if it was the most pressing communication of cartographical news, pays particularly attention to the form of habitation in Java and the houses in which the inhabitants live and the palm nuts of which they live, as if to embody the information displayed in disembodied form in the later world map projection. In the years before Mercator's Theatrum Orbis Terrarum, nautical charts concretize viewers' material relation of two spatial particularly. The map offers something like a luxurious windows into the newly discovered land for viewers to contemplate in ways that simple terrestrial projection did not allow. The imagination continent of luxury and untold richness, filled with nutmeg and cloves, as well as idolatrous inhabitants, made its way onto the globe by 1583, if somewhat assimilation to Antarctica. It might explain the staying power of nautical charts based on observation practice of sailors and possessing a clearer pedigree as transportation of space into the 17th century. At the same time as material goods were arriving in Europe from the West Africa and Southeast Asia, map provided something of a spatial catalog to understand their arrival and place them somewhere in a live topography, as much as they offered tools of orientation. Java La Grande was attractive, very attractive, as something of an evidence of the inhabitation of a region later identified with Australia before the arrival of Captain Cook, in ways that depicted the inhabitant that occupied its expanse in something of a romantic light. Well, just finish to this. You can think about this Java La Grande with the other article. Please study more.